TogiNet Radio has partnered with one of the largest travel booking engines in the world to offer savings of 15 to 30% or even more. I give you the opportunity to go look at their hotel fees and take advantage of their cost savings. Please go to www.bestradiotravel.com. Check them out. I think you'll be pleased.
Welcome to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, a program for and about women. Joyce Buford is a certified coach and motivational speaker who has a passion for helping women who need a second wind. She is the author of the Amazon bestseller, Effortless Happiness, How to Find Your Voice and Finally Ask for What You Really Want. She studied directly with her mentor, Jack Canfield, and is a fully certified coach in his program. Also, she has served as an assistant in his training programs. Through her study with many prestigious coaches and mentors, she has created a powerful program that has positively impacted thousands of people. On today's program, Joyce and her guests will help you to get your second wind. Now here's your host, Joyce Buford.
Good morning. Welcome to Second Wind. It's such a pleasure that I have you here. Always. I love to know that you're out there listening. I'm going to give you a friendly reminder this morning of the importance of doing your planning for this year. We're creating a new year in 2020. And I don't know about you, but I am so optimistic about this year. Maybe it's the way 2020 rhymes or something, but I just feel so positive about this year. I want to tell you about something really interesting I am doing. You know, I love to do vision board workshops. And vision board workshops, is it's the same as doing goals, but you're doing goals and what you want to achieve in a year through pictures and words and affirmations. And so I love teaching those. Well, I have a very unusual situation. The Junior League of Tyler, Texas, is having a Power for the Young Girls. And so it's tomorrow, and we are actually I'm doing 2 sessions with 125 students in each session on how to start making vision boards. Now, these are 6th graders. And although I think they will be some of the youngest, I know they're some of the youngest I have ever spoken to, I think it's exciting that they're putting the positive, at least speaking toward creating the year that you want to have in your life. I think it's an awesome experience. Well, I will tell you next show how that day goes. I kind of wonder how it's going to go too. 125 6th graders in one big room. That's a new experience for me. But I am so looking forward to it, and I think it's going to be so much fun. So, our guest today is a woman that I think you're going to really enjoy. Lisa Romano is a certified life coach, best-selling author of 6 books, and YouTube vlogger. She specializes in codependency and narcissistic abuse recovery. She is also one of the most listened to meditation teachers on the world's largest meditation app, Insight Timer. Lisa creates real-life tools to help people evolve past their trauma so that they can live in peace, achieve success, and create harmony in their lives, regardless of painful past events. Now, Lisa is quoted as saying, "I help wounded adult children heal from the trauma from the past by helping them understand what it is at the helm of their struggles. Wounded adult children do not always realize that it's not them. It's their childhood programming that is holding them back. I have developed proven strategies to help people heal once and for all." Oh, Great. Welcome, Lisa. We are so happy to have you on the show today.
Yeah, it's an honor. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, listen, I'm looking at this and I'm going, well, we're all raised by people that are raised by people that are raised by people with not the best of family lives, a lot of struggle, a lot of dysfunction. So are there any that actually come out unscathed by their birth families?
I think it's I think we all suffer some type of trauma, and I think that the one universal feeling that we can all, understand is this one of suffering, of pain. You can look at a picture of a woman in a third world country, holding a child in her arms who's been injured, and you can see the expression on her face. And you can come from Texas or you can come from New York and immediately resonate with the suffering that she's experiencing or the trauma of this terrible event. And so this idea, I don't think any of us are going to escape, not having to suffer. I think you're a human being, you have emotions. You with other human beings who are wounded, it's inevitable. The goal really is to, learn how to navigate when this suffering arises, learn how to see it for what it is, rather than succumb to suffering and then be unable to make your way out of it. And I'm sure, as your mentor Jack Canfield would attest, is that what you think and what you feel and what you believe, it's almost like an agreement to the universe. Yes, this is true. And so we've got to be very, very careful when we're in that quagmire of emotions, because what we see is the result of what we believe, but we also see what we believe. And so I think it's so important that we understand that if you come from a dysfunctional home, or even maybe your home wasn't that dysfunctional, but you were raised in chaos, people argued. Chaos is detrimental to a child's brain, because in order for a brain to wire to feel safe and to be able to trust itself and develop a positive perception of self, it needs to be around pretty consistent experiences, pretty balanced people. Loving has to be consistent. It can't be conditional. So I think it's nearly impossible for a child to be born and not have some trauma to have to navigate. But the good news is that as you raise your awareness, as you raise your consciousness, you can become aware of the holes in the wall and fix them.
I like that. Yeah. I was thinking as I was going over your information that, I talk about it in my own speaking, where women are nurturers. We see it modeled. It's the woman, and I particularly saw it in my family, it's the woman that seems to take care of everybody. Can we really take that so lightly as that we are the nurturers of the world? Or is that really a bought and sold job that we have taken on and it becomes codependency?
I think nurturing is a beautiful thing, and I think the ability to nurture is a beautiful thing.
Right.
And, I think the idea that, the fact that a woman's body is responsible for the ultimate creation, we can't do it without sperm, obviously.
Right.
But the idea that a woman's body is created to nurture this little embryo, into this little fetus, into this human being is pretty fabulous. So I don't think it's a negative thing that women have this nurturing role. I think that when we box ourselves into that role and society says that's all you can do, you can't own your own business. You can't do this amazing. You can't go to the moon because you have to stay home. I think that's where we get into trouble. And I also think that the roles of men and women have changed so dramatically over the past 100 years. It's, and so much has happened so quickly that we're imbalanced. We're suffering with this imbalance. 100 years ago, men were men and women were women, and kind of knew what our roles were, and everybody just followed along,
Yes.
As things are wait a minute, that's not so fair. I want a little bit of that. I want some more freedom. I want to, own my own home. I want to, buy my own car and start my own business, and I'm a female.
Yeah.
And
right.
my body, I have the uterus, therefore I have the babies. I get that, but we need to balance this out a little bit. So I think we have to find the balance. And I think men, I see it in my own son, and I see it in his friends that, men are becoming more nurturers. At least that's my experience.
Yes, I think they are too. Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to strike that balance, and men are going to, men and women are going to have to work this out, where we're going to have to hold on to this, the ability to nurture by nature, but also, hold on to this idea that we also have a right to create our own lives, and then we have to help men catch up, to the point where we allow them to nurture, because sometimes women, we want to do everything. We don't.
I know. That was my mother.
To help out. Yeah, but no, you can't do it as good as me. But but yes, when we are raised by women who model caretaking and then play the martyr, then we develop little girls who do the same and think that it's their job to make other people happy and to cater to other people, to ignore themselves, and then they become very angry women.
Right.
Very angry, very stifled, and very unhappy, miserable, depressed, and so it can go awry.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I introduced a word that maybe we need a little definition, a big definition about this word. Codependency. Can you tell us what that is that we're going to be talking about today?
Sure. So, it's quite the buzzword, and it was a little bit of background, back in the 1960s, 1970s, therapists and counselors and researchers were they were kind of like amazed at how similar the spouses of alcoholics behaved. Low self-esteem. They had an inability to make decisions. They confused pity with love. They tended to be caretakers. They tended not to be able to set boundaries. They had a very poor sense of self or no sense of self. And originally, researchers thought that was because they were married to alcoholics that they had to take care of. Well, further research into early childhood trauma into the 80s and 90s and so forth, we're realizing that people who have codependency are actually drawn to people who have alcoholism because we are caretakers and we know how to manage chaos and we know how to worry about other people, but we don't know how to worry about the self.
Yeah.
So I want to broaden the idea of codependency because my idea of codependency is any time that I think that who I am and what my sense of value is tied to something externally, I can be considered codependent upon that thing for a sense of self. So it's this idea that I don't have a healthy sense of self or who am I, but if I'm the prettiest girl in the room, I am someone. Or if I have the biggest house in the block, I am someone. Yes. Or if I have a relationship, I am someone. So we can be, when we're codependent, we tend to stay in relationships that are unhealthy longer than we should.
Yeah.
We don't know how to, like I said earlier, we don't know how to set boundaries and we cater to the needs of others. But further, we become codependent on something or someone outside of ourselves for a sense of who am I? Does that make sense to you?
Definitely. Okay. Oh, definitely. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. I'm kind of, as you're going through this, I'm even using myself as a model because I know I am codependent. You've described me.
Raising my hand. Raising my hand.
I think there's far more than we'd like to admit, but
I think it's, we have to, that's why I talk about it whenever I get a chance because, before I was diagnosed, I didn't know I was depressed, but my hair was falling out. I had stomach problems. I had migraine headaches. I had rashes. I couldn't sleep. I had anxiety. I had panic disorder. I had all of these terrible things happening to me physically, but I didn't know why. And it's because I was looking for happiness outside of myself. Well, if I take care of my ex-husband, then he'll love me. Then I'll feel enough. If I take care of my in-laws and if I anticipate their needs, certainly they'll care about me, and then I'll be enough. So the entire time, I'm exhausted, I'm frustrated, I'm not getting my needs met. I expect people to read my mind, so I'm really devolving instead of evolving. And then when I walked to my therapist's office and he said, "You're not crazy, you're codependent," I was like, but I don't drink, and my husband doesn't drink, and, how could I be codependent? And then as I began to investigate, I was like, whoa, I am the poster child of codependency. And then once I really grabbed hold of my accountability and how I had let go of the reins of the self and really allowed other people to define me, that was really difficult because I had to accept that I was programmed for this type of maladaptive way of perceiving myself, the world, and my position in it. That was very difficult. But it became my mission to figure it out and then help people learn how to undo it. And that's what I do.
Yeah. Was it the moment in your therapy that you was that the defining moment, the transition through your therapy, that you knew this is what you needed to do? Or was the deciding factor that led you to divorce? Or what was it that turned your life into a different direction toward healing? Well,
I think what happened was I no matter what I tried, I wanted to connect to my ex-husband, and that's very common for codependency because codependency is rooted in abandonment.
Yes.
And powerlessness. And more than anything, I was just like, why can't I connect with you? Like, why can't we ever get on the same page? And I was really losing myself. And he said to me one day, I said to him, I want to go into therapy for us. And he said, I'm not crazy. And if you feel crazy, you go into therapy. And I was really, Joyce, I was at my wit's end. I was like panic attacks, there was nothing left in me. I was terrified, absolutely terrified. And I thought, okay, I'll be a good little codependent because I'm crazy and go into therapy. And the first session, why are you here? I was like, well, I feel crazy. I can't connect to my husband and I'm unhappy, but I have 3 kids and they're healthy and I have a beautiful house, but I'm still unhappy and blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, is there any alcoholism in your family? I said, no, I don't drink. He said, that's not what I asked you. And it was like, whoa, wait a minute. Whoa, what do you mean? It got my attention because my mind raced a million miles an hour. He said, I didn't ask you if you were an alcoholic. I asked you if there was alcoholism in your family. And I said, well, my grandparents were alcoholics. And he said, oh, so you were raised by adult children of alcoholics. I said, I guess so. And he said, well, I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is you're not crazy, but you are codependent. It's going to take everything you have to, undo this. So that was a defining moment for me.
Yeah.
Then the next step was, what is codependency? And I was so excited because I went to my ex-husband and I go, I know what's wrong with us. We're codependent. I pursue you and you withdraw. The more I want to connect with you, the more suffocated you feel, and the more you run away. All I have to do is stop chasing your approval. I have to stop taking care of you. I have to start taking care of myself. And he said, oh, no, I'm not going to have any of that. No, I like things just the way they are. With you chasing me and with you, buying my underwear and,
yes.
No. And that shocked me because I was like, what? Now what?
Right.
He's not going to be on board. And then I realized another defining moment was through my recovery work. I was like, when I realized when I was doing studies on child psychology and the subconscious mind, I was like, this is literally like an app in your cell phone. Codependency is an app, and your subconscious mind works this codependency app out of your awareness of it. And I said, I've infected my children with the same virus. And that's when I knew I had to get out of the marriage. I wanted to teach them to love themselves and to stand up for themselves. And that was another defining moment. So my life has been a series of defining moments. And then once I got out, I knew I wanted to help other people learn what I learned.
Yeah, that's a great mission. Great.
Yeah.
Passion. Because there's so many people affected to it. I was married to an alcoholic, and I did not want to leave the marriage. I really didn't. I wanted it to work, but it wasn't working. So I started growing, and that didn't work. That did not work well.
No.
So more and more distance. Oh, I wish I would have talked to you back then. about 20 years earlier.
It is when you're married to an alcoholic, you don't want to admit that he or she might be an alcoholic. You don't want to admit it.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't want to hurt their feelings. You think they might be an alcoholic, but you don't want to hurt their feelings, and then what does this mean about you if you're married to an alcoholic? It's so maddening. And it's all about codependency, which is we struggle with being able to say, this is my experience and this is how I feel. This is my authentic truth. And deeper, this is where I want to go. So we're stuck.
Right. Yeah. Well, you'll laugh at this, Lisa. We went through couples therapy. I never even talked about alcoholism. She never even asked about it.
Yeah.
It was fix this woman. That would be me.
Yes. Yes.
So,
yes. Why are you so unhappy? Why are you so unhappy, Joyce?
Yeah. You have so much.
That's right.
Yes.
I hear it all the time. And then there's so much shame because you look around in the physical 3D world and you think, well, I do have stuff, but with suffering, where you're suffering, where the deficit is, nobody can see. So in order to appreciate the deficit within you, you need to trust yourself, right? Because the world is going to say, you don't have a right to feel the way you feel, Joyce. He's a good guy.
Okay, now I was listening. You all have to go to Lisa's website. It's just full of good information. She's very generous in offering so many videos you could listen to, and I listened to part of one. And in that video, I think this is where I heard that, you said shame, you don't always know where shame might come from. Mm-hmm. Didn't you say that? Did I hear that right?
Shame is a big deal. Oh.
It is.
Shame is
so
huge.
Tell me more.
So shame, well, my theory is that when you're born, you're supposed to feel connected to these beings that have created you or summoned you to this 3D experience.
Yeah.
And when you're born to someone who may struggle with being able to finally attune themselves to you, then you feel your brain registers, danger. As you evolve into a 2- and 3-year-old little being, your ego gets developed. Your ego is developed, a part of your personality. And this ego is aware that you need these other people for safety to eat. And then if they are not attuning themselves to you, then your little mind, because it's subjective, not objective, thinks it's your fault.
Right.
So if Daddy, for instance, is an alcoholic and keeps missing my baseball game or my soccer games, it's my fault. I don't know that Daddy is drinking and Daddy forgot. I don't know. I just know that he's not here and it's my fault. So shame starts very, very early because children assume responsibility for it. And then this theme of accepting responsibility for why we're unable to connect with people, why people are angry, this just continues. And we don't always know as adults where this shame is coming from because it's subconscious. We don't remember where this shame is rooted. We just don't. We just know that when we invite someone out and they don't show up, we feel ashamed. We don't know that it's tied to some childhood experience of being abandoned.
Right.
Or if we're unable to make someone happy, we don't know that it's tied to some earlier experience. You don't always know where shame comes from. And then I also think if you're born into a religious family, sometimes it's very easy to have young children misunderstand what their parents may have been trying to instill in them. I've had so many clients suffer spiritual abuse, because the Bible was used against them or Scripture was used against them, and so shame can come from feeling separate from even your own God, or feeling unworthy of your own God.
Yeah.
Or if you're different, society will shame you. If you're overweight, society will shame you. If you're not the prettiest little girl in school, or
right. Yeah.
So shame comes from so many places.
My sister was 3 years older than I was. She was very smart and very good at manipulating. She was the ideal daughter. And I was sort of the artsy one, you might say. And so I really did get a lot of messages, I'm not smart enough. I'm not cute enough. I'm not. And then we lived in a housing area, and I had 3 of the meanest cousins in the world that we played with. And I think I was really introduced to bullying. I really do, through those 3 kids.
Yeah.
And my sister went along with them. So.
Yeah, that's terrible. And that's so terrible. And that happens a lot, and it happens early, and it really can stain you with this idea that I'm powerless against groups,
and when, yes. Good point. I never thought of that.
And authorities, because when you're young, a 3-year older sibling is an authority. You think about an 8-year-old who has an 11-year-old sister. That's an authority. We're not equal. Well, an 8-year-old and 11, we're not equal. And so there could be this feeling of the fear of an authority figure when an older sibling or older cousins are pushing you around and bullying you. Yeah. It all comes back to you, the being, feeling, I don't know what's going on, but I just know that I'm not enough. I'm not enough to love.
Big enough to stand up to these bullies.
I'm not enough to have them. It's deeper. I'm not enough to have them see me as one of them. I'm not enough. Yes. I'm not enough for them. I'm different.
Yeah, because I wouldn't have been able, with my age, to have understood even what a bully is, or to set them out as a person that's not doing something right, that's being cruel to me. I would just consider it as interaction, and they don't like me.
Yeah, they don't like me, and children assume responsibility for that. It's my fault. And then what a child wants to do is shame moves in, but a child always feels like, I wish they would accept me.
Yeah.
This longing for, why don't they like me, and why don't they love me? And, it becomes a theme.
Yeah. Well, this is a good time for us to take a little pause here. We're going to have a commercial and talk about, but haven't we learned a lot, people out there listening? Can you see yourself in some of these roles that Lisa has so beautifully described for us today? Well, you could tell I did. So I hope that you have kind of identified, and you know where you can go, Lisa's website. So we'll be giving you all that information. But we're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back with more about you and how you can grow into a strong whole person.
Transformational coach, motivational speaker, and author Joyce Buford returns after this short break. Close your eyes and imagine living your life without limits. Where would you go? Who would you meet? What would you do? During an Uncover Your Hidden Genius session, you will discover what's keeping you from living your life with purpose, passion, and fulfillment of your potential. You'll get a clear vision of the steps you need to take to uncover your hidden genius so that you can live a life without limits. Sessions can be done over the phone, Skype, or in person. Find out more at www.joycebufordempowers.com or by calling 903-287-0747.
TogiNet Radio has partnered with one of the largest travel booking engines in the world to offer savings of 15 to 30% or more on hotel booking fees through our own web portal, www.bestradiotravel.com. Discover the discount you can receive by going to bestradiotravel.com/Joyce, Joyce, to see for yourself. This is a custom booking site for the listeners of my show through TogiNet Radio. We have negotiated special rates at over 650,000 hotels worldwide to save our customers money. Our members leverage our massive buying power to save thousands of dollars by booking with us. bestradiotravel.com can beat the best prices offered by any other major travel booking website. Please go to bestradiotravel.com/Joyce, sign up, and enjoy the discounts. This is bestradiotravel.com/Joyce, Joyce.
Welcome back to this segment of Second Wind. Joyce Buford, the author of Effortless Happiness, continues in this segment to share insights that will help you live a life of greater purpose and filled with happiness. Now here's our host, author and coach, Joyce Buford.
Welcome back to our visit with Lisa Romano. And as you know, we're talking about codependency. One of the things that Lisa and I were talking about over break is that I had never put together the history of my family. My father was raised by his father, of course, who had a divorce in his family, and he was on his second marriage. And we never talked about it, but I believe Granddad was an alcoholic. Now, later in his life, when I was really around him the most, he was not drinking, but I do believe he was at one time. And so, but as Lisa will say, he was a dry alcoholic. And so that brings to mind that would be why I would identify, fall in love with an alcoholic in my marriage, because I felt so comfortable dealing and surviving in that, whether good or bad. Right,
Mm-hmm.
Lisa? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's part of it's part of your programming. You know, it's part of what you grew up in. You know, your dad was the adult child of an alcoholic who was raised by an alcoholic. And
Yes.
so you came from a dry home where alcohol wasn't the issue, but
Yeah.
what we fail to recognize is really our emotional set point. Like, who raised us? I was raised by adult children of alcoholics like you were. And my parents thought, well, if I don't drink, then everything's fine.
Yes.
But they never dealt with their childhood trauma. They never dealt with the narcissism of their fathers. They never dealt with the alcoholism. In my case, my father's mother actually committed suicide, and that was never dealt with. So my parents never learned to deal with their feelings. And so
Yes.
when it came to dealing with us, we weren't allowed to have feelings.
Right.
We were expected to suppress our feelings. And so I couldn't, nothing made sense to me except when I was helping to take care of other people. So I, like you manifest people who demand that you take care of them. And it's my opinion that alcoholics have an issue. It needs to be addressed. However, when they are in the throes of active alcoholism and they haven't figured out why they drink, in my opinion, they can act as and present as very narcissistic, because alcoholics are, very often before they're diagnosed and before they even accept that they have an issue with alcohol, will deny that they have an issue with alcohol. And so when the spouse says, I think you're drinking too much, they say, you're crazy. There's nothing wrong with me drinking. So there's this big denial. Narcissists in general are rooted in denial. And they have little empathy for how they treat other people. And, it's when you're living with an alcoholic who is creating havoc in your life and they're in denial of it, it's like living with a narcissist.
Yes. Yes. I so identify with that. Now, one thing that let me see, I'm trying to put this question together. In your life, then, did you find yourself single parenting? Since we were both,
Oh, yes. My ex-husband, I always felt like I was alone in my marriage. In fact, I felt like I had another child.
Yeah.
And in my case, when I asked him to step up and be a more viable partner, he would get angry. And so it was actually, when I got divorced, it's odd to say, but it was actually easier for me to raise my children without this other person. It was just easier because I knew that he wasn't there to just rely on myself. But oh yes, I always felt alone, unable to connect to him.
Yeah.
But really, I never realized that I really wasn't connected to myself. That I didn't know how to honor my feelings. I just knew how to take care of people and to stuff my feelings. And I always felt like I needed his permission to feel what I felt, or I needed him to say, "Oh yes, you have a right to feel that way." I never knew that I had a right to have a perception of him, and if my perception sucked, it was valid. And I didn't need him to say, "Yes, I'm a crappy husband, I'm a crappy partner," which was what I was waiting for, which sounds so bizarre.
Yeah.
But if you're a codependent or you don't stand up for yourself, you'll understand that language.
Well, you're kind of so hungry to agree on something, I found.
Yeah.
Didn't you want to agree on something in the marriage?
Well, yeah, I remember going into therapy going, we're not on the same planet. We're not in the same universe. We can't get from point A to point B. I am alone in this. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned something earlier that I really want to bring out and emphasize. To this day, I'm getting so much better. But boundaries, my word, there were no boundaries. And I mean, I couldn't discuss things that were bothering me because I'd never seen it modeled in my household growing up. And so it was really hard for me to even put the sentence together, much less all the emotional feeling of what would happen if he didn't like what I said, or what would be the repercussions. And it's just a crazy what goes through your mind. Yep. I mean, it's like you look at everything with no power.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the brain. What we have to understand is, like this, what I talk about in my programs, in my books, is that you have to understand that your brain comes with a prefactory setting to avoid pain. And so, if you get the sense that the person that you're living with is going to be unhappy if you bring a certain topic up, your brain associates pain with that. Your brain will have a natural avoidance. Your brain, before you even realize it, your mind will decide, not talking about that because I know he's going to get upset. You're always trying to avoid pain. We don't realize we're living in fear. We're living in survival. We don't realize it.
Right.
And to an adult child, which you are an adult child, to an adult child just living in survival, unfortunately, we associate that with pleasure. As long as we're not making people angry, as long as everything's moving along, we're okay. So that's not really thriving, that's surviving. And I watched my mother live, under the thumb of my father, who, I would say he's on the narcissistic spectrum. She was terrified of him. Terrified. And she learned, she would say to us, "Lisa, just do what he wants and he won't get angry." And I would look at her like, "Mom, he's wrong. Just do what your father wants you to do and he'll be okay." I'm like, "Ma, hello, is anybody home? He's wrong." But she learned that if she acquiesced, there was peace on earth. And I would say to her, "You're not thriving, you're surviving. This is not living. Tiptoeing around this man who has no empathy for you is not living." But unfortunately, she passed away. She ended up had a stroke, got dementia, and it was very sad for me. And it's part of what the fuel under my butt is to coach people so that they don't die the way my mother did, unaware, unconscious, and never knowing how her childhood affected her and why she manifested the mate that she manifested.
Right. Yeah. Now, did she die before your father died?
No, my dad's still living.
Yeah, okay. So he's still. Has he found another wife?
Not yet. Not yet.
Oh, so she just recently died.
Well, she passed away in 2018, and my dad is now living with my sister and her 2 children. So I think if he was not being catered to, then he would find someone. But she's kind of, in my opinion, she's replaced my mom and takes care of him. And when you're high on the narcissistic spectrum, you need someone to take care of you. You need someone who mirrors back to you, you're wonderful, you're terrific. You just need that. You can't survive without this false image being projected back to you. And so I
find the relationship with my ex-husband and my children much that way. Much that way. Yeah.
If they don't mirror back to him, then he's awesome. Or if they don't mirror, if they dare to say, because they're black and white thinkers. We all are to a degree, but with a narcissist or somebody who's very fragile emotionally, if you slight them in the slightest, in their head you're bad. It doesn't matter what good you've done for them. The moment you slight them, all of that goes out the window, and that's why they can be so vindictive.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Well, if there is a woman out there listening that has these symptoms, what would you encourage her to do? See a therapist? Do what?
Well, I think that
listen to you.
I think that
you have a wonderful test you could take on your site.
Yes. I have a codependency quiz that they can take, and they can download the answers. I think that, codependency isn't in the diagnostic manual yet. And so it's not diagnosable. I think it should be, but it's not.
Really?
It's not.
Gosh.
And so hopefully in the future it will be. But codependency is basically, some people say it's a lack of self-love. I think it's deeper. I think it's a lack of self. I think it's living externally, thinking that if I'm the best nurse, or if I'm the best doctor, or if I'm the best, mom, if I'm the best this, or if I'm the whatever. It's this external thing that I'm looking for that I hope will give me a sense of self. You're going to develop codependency symptoms. Now, when you first hear something like this, it can be frightening. I was terrified when I was like, I'm codependent. I was terrified because it meant that I was living in denial. And I remember the moment I said to myself, if these are not my thoughts, whose thoughts are they? It freaked me out. And I was like, these are my mother's programs. They're not mine. They're not mine. So that scared me.
Right.
But I stayed on the path, and I got through it, and I eventually created a blueprint. I mean, I was hungry for this. I still am. This became my life. Healing myself became my life. And one of the reasons, it's so funny that Jack Canfield is your mentor, because I remember listening to him, and he one thing that he said was, and I remember thinking like, okay, Jack, how do I do that? I'm a single mom with 3 kids. Like, follow your passion. Like, okay, I love to help people. I love to talk and meet people. How the hell am I going to turn that into a passion, Jack?
And voila, it is a passion.
So, and it was basically what I took from that was just do what you love. And that's, I was like, I'm just going to do what I love. And I created a website, and then I started writing internet articles, and here we are. But I remember at the beginning. Yeah, and I'm still going. I'm about to publish my 7th book. And so I'm still going. But when you first realize you're codependent, you're terrified, because you're like, oh my God, that means I've been denying so much, and I'm part of this dynamic. So it's terrifying. So I think if you're going to go into therapy, if you have anxiety, it's great to say, wow, I have anxiety, but go deeper. Why do I have anxiety? What am I suppressing? I love sentence completion work, and one of the best books that I've ever read was by Nathaniel Branden, and it's called Honor the Self. I think that's a great place to start. If you're going to go into therapy, look for a therapist who is, I say, a trauma-informed therapist, because those of us from codependency have suffered what's called abandonment trauma. We've been abandoned emotionally in childhood, and not every therapist understands that. Lots of therapists just want to talk about what's happening on the surface with the marriage. No, we've got to go deeper.
I'd have to tell them, really.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we went through 3 therapists.
Yes,
and they never got that part. None of them.
Yep.
And it doesn't speak well for the therapists in my little town. But so why not go directly to you? I mean, you've studied this.
That's absolutely fine.
saying.
I have an online program. We run a fall session, and we run a summer session online. We're about to launch our program this month on February 6th, I think we launch, and it's an online class. And I have moderators that help me moderate the class, and you go through this 12-week class of video lessons, meditations, because I believe what's wrong is what's in the subconscious mind. I'm doing what I'm doing, but I don't know why I'm doing it, and what I'm doing is keeping me stuck. So talking about it isn't going to do a damn thing. I have to get to the root of why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why I create the meditation. So it's 12 weeks of meditations, 12 weeks of journaling. I create the prompts. And we meet on Facebook every day. We talk it out. We have a live call every week. And the program, is very successful. I'm very proud of it. It's very successful. And the graduates are then able to go into a Law of Attraction masterclass where they get to hone their emotional set points. I also offer a membership site for people who want to get in there and start now. Rather than wait for one of my programs to start, you can get into one of my classes now and start working on your own.
Oh,
and so, I'm really trying to be a source for people who want to awaken and heal their subconscious programming.
Yeah. So tell them how to go to your website so they can look at all this.
Sure. Yeah, you can go to www.lisaaromano, 2 A's, ROMANO.com, and you can check out what we have to offer. You can also listen to me on YouTube, follow me on Instagram. And like you said earlier, I'm one of the most listened to meditation teachers on Insight Timer, which is a free meditation app.
I wonder if I don't have that. I don't always go to it, but I have lots of apps, so I'm going to check it out after our program here today. But you have 6 books. I mean, my goodness. So where would you start if somebody wanted to start with a book?
I would start, I wrote my books in a specific order, so I would start with The Road Back to Me. The Road Back to Me really helps people understand their life through the eyes of their inner child. So you understand how innocuous interactions, or what seems like innocuous interactions with your mother and your father, or your family, your sister, like you mentioned, could wound you, and how that could create this program for feeling not enough. So I would start with The Road Back to Me. I would move on to My Road Beyond the Codependent Divorce. That's where the Road Back to Me ends, and you can pick up. The next book that I would read is Codependent Now What? It's Not You, It's Your Programming. The next book I would read is Quantum Tools to Help You Heal Your Life Now. And the next 2 books I would read as affirmations. So I'm creating a series of books where people can read an affirmation a day and really, really ponder on that affirmation to help you heal from subconscious programming, codependency, and narcissistic abuse.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That's really good because you do. I mean, Amazon has not laid them out that way. No,
I know.
They do not have that same order. What is the one on El Camino?
Oh, that's El Camino is the Spanish version of The Road Back to Me.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
And the next book it'll be due out this year. It's called The Codependency Manifesto: The Way Out of the Codependent Mind. It's pretty much a culmination of all of my books into one, the theories and the ideas and the practices, lots of journaling to help us awaken to what's keeping us stuck.
Right. And when's that come out?
I would say it should be out within the next 6 months. It should be ready. Yeah.
So have you always liked to write, or is this something that through your healing you kind of discovered that you like to write? Because I'm sure you did journaling with your healing. Oh,
well, thank God I love to write, and I love to write poetry as a child because I think it saved me. Because writing was the only place where I felt safe. Because I felt like my mother was in my mind judging me, and I was afraid to upset my father, and everyone looked so happy, but everything felt so sterile.
Yes.
I felt like I had all these emotions inside of me for loving my family, but we weren't a very nurturing family. I had nowhere to go with these feelings, and so they got locked inside of me, and I got very confused about who I was. I felt very bad, like there was something wrong with me. And the only place where I felt able to express that was on paper. And so I've always written since I'm 7.
Yeah.
Since I learned to write. Yep.
Yeah. Not my strongest asset. I don't like to write that much. I had a learning disability, which really was not discovered until about a year ago. And it was quite interesting. I'm trying to think of but it was where your eyes see streams of space in the printed text. I'm trying to think of what that is called. But anyway, it can be corrected by tinted glasses.
Right.
And the good thing is now children are tested for this, which is awesome. But, I spent a lot of my life struggling with that. So it's kind of affected my writing and reading.
Well,
and
I'm not sure, Joyce, but also just so you know that there's studies that suggest that when you live with an alcoholic, which is who very oftentimes they present as narcissists, you're experiencing narcissistic abuse and you're living in a trauma environment. You're stuffing your feelings for the sake of your children. That will affect you. So, and if you're raised in a home that's unpredictable, or if there's a lot of stress, that also affects your ability to learn.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
There you go. But the good news is you can get a lot of that back, which is awesome.
Oh, good. Yeah. The believing I'm smart, even though I've run a children's museum here in Tyler, and I loved the work. Once I could get into the areas where I could express myself, oh my gosh, the world just started opening up. And
so important because we're all part of the flow. We're all part of the flow, Joyce.
Yeah.
And when you come from a dysfunctional home, you're constricted. You're not part of the flow.
Right.
And so you're born to, like an acorn is born not to only become a tree, but to become a forest.
I
think
love
about
that.
An acorn, it's true. And we have not come to play it small, but our fears keep us small. We have come to evolve. We've come to touch people and to, share our message and share our gifts. And when we're not doing that, we're in a state of constriction. Our brains don't operate well. We don't operate well. Our body systems don't operate well. So, yes, you found the flow. That's awesome.
Yeah, I found color.
Awesome.
In Children's Museum, you use all those primary colors.
Love it.
And anyway, then we got a designer in there, and he went to those designer colors. But anyway, it was a great period of my life to help me in my healing, actually.
That's wonderful.
So it probably kept me together during my 5 last years of marriage.
Yeah,
so,
I hear you.
We sometimes don't see those gifts, that we have.
When you're living in survival, you can't. And when you're living with someone who's disordered for any reason, you're managing chaos. So you're not looking within. There's no chance to look within because the outside world is constantly, it's like sand. It's shifting between, beneath your feet. You're constantly managing something outside of you. So the last 5 years of your marriage, maybe you knew that it was ending, and what made you feel good is connecting to something inside of you.
Yeah. Well, I was building my strength because the more decisions I could make, the more powerful I became outside of the family, outside of the marriage. And so, of course, that didn't work for the marriage. You know how that goes.
Right.
So, but anyway, and something
look at you now.
What?
Look at you now. Look what you've done.
Oh, yeah, I love doing the podcast because I can talk to such interesting people like Lisa.
That's great. That's great.
And we're sharing so much good information for my listeners out there. I know there's a woman out there that needs to hear that message today.
Sure.
And so we've reached her. We haven't really talked much about negative self-talk and limiting beliefs. We have, but we haven't. And it's, if your mind is filled with that, you need to visit Lisa's site. You need to get familiar with what's there to offer. I believe in going where the healer is. I do not believe in just going to a title that says they do this. I've found in my journey that you go where the healer is, the one that's dealt with the issue. So, Lisa, I really appreciate that you have given us this time, this great information. I just have thoroughly enjoyed the program today.
Oh, me too. Thank you so much, Joyce. And thank you for being you. And in spite of the past, transforming your life and turning, turning yourself into this person who inspires other people. That's such a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Well, I do hope that we will cross paths with you again. So
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so we can continue sharing this strong message that needs to be heard by so many women out there. And it needs to be heard by men too occasionally. You know, they may get into situations where they're really living in a difficult life as well. But I am particularly fond of my sisters. So thank you, Lisa, for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Joyce. Thank you.
Now, if you have listened to this program and you really have questions, you're saying, is this really me? Then I want you to go to Lisa's site, www.lisaromano.com and visit it. Take the test. But just as usual, we brought you great information that you can take and run with it. You can put it into your daily life. And until next week, I say make this week count. Grow here, grow there, grow somewhere. Take a step for you. We love you. Stay tuned.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.